The words didn't make sense at first. She stood in the kitchen, back against the counter, her hands trembling around a coffee mug she didn't drink from. "I'm going back to my ex," she said quietly, like she was confessing to a stranger and not to the man she'd spent 15 years building a life with. The sound of the refrigerator hum filled the silence between us. I didn't shout. I didn't plead. I just looked at her and said, "Okay." It wasn't indifference, it was survival. My heart had already split open months ago. I'd just been too afraid to look at the wound. She blinked, surprised by my calm. Maybe she wanted a fight, or maybe she wanted forgiveness so she could leave feeling noble. But I gave her nothing. Only silence, and silence can be crueler than rage. She left that night. The sound of her suitcase wheels across the hardwood floor was the final scrape across 15 years of laughter, fights, and Sunday mornings. I stood in the doorway as her taillights disappeared down the street, and the house felt cavernous, like a museum of moments she'd stolen from me. I sat on the couch for hours replaying every conversation, every late-night text she said was just work. I remembered the perfume that lingered too long after a girl's night, the sudden phone screen tilts when I walked into the room, the way she'd stopped asking me how my day was. I should have known. But love makes fools of us all. By midnight, I poured myself a drink and opened the folder she'd left on the counter. A bank statement, property deed copies, and a note in her handwriting. "You'll be fine. I've spoken to a lawyer about dividing things fairly." Fairly. The word cut like glass. At 2 a.m, I called my own lawyer. Not out of revenge, but out of clarity. Because what she didn't know was that for months, I'd been preparing for this. See, I had already suspected her affair with Daniel, the ex she once swore she barely talks to. He owned a failing business, one that had somehow been receiving mysterious consulting payments from our joint account. I'd noticed the withdrawals, traced the routing number, and quietly moved half our assets into a trust under my name. I played the role of the clueless husband perfectly. When I said okay, what I really meant was I've already started saying goodbye. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the kitchen window, warm and deceptive. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. "This is Mr. Collins representing your wife," a sharp voice snapped. "We need to discuss her share of the marital assets. She claims you've—" I cut him off. "Her share." I leaned back, letting the quiet confidence fill my tone. "She should have checked her account before calling you." There was a pause, papers rustling. Then his tone shifted from smug to startled. "Excuse me." I smiled faintly. Everything in that joint account was legally transferred before she filed intent. Check the timestamps. She's welcome to consult her financial advisor. Oh wait, that was me. The silence on his end was priceless. Then with a hint of panic he muttered, "I'll have to get back to you." He hung up. I laughed for the first time in months. Not out of spite but release. The kind of laugh that comes when pain burns itself out and leaves only clarity behind. By noon I got another call, this time from her. "You drained the account," she said, voice trembling. "You can't do that." "You already did," I replied softly. "You drained us long before the money left." She tried to argue, to cry, to twist guilt into apology. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this, Mark. Daniel and I, we reconnected. It felt like I got a piece of myself back." Her words echoed in my chest, painful and hollow. Piece of yourself back. And what about the pieces of me she took when she lied? I didn't yell. I didn't tell her about the months I stayed up wondering why her laughter no longer reached her eyes. I didn't tell her about the dinners I ate alone, pretending the food still tasted the same without her across the table. Instead I said, "I hope he makes you happy." There was silence on the other end. Then quietly, "You're not going to fight for me?" "No," I said. "I already did. You just weren't watching." The call ended. That night I went into my bedroom. Her side of the closet was empty, save for a single sweater she'd missed. It smelled faintly of her perfume, soft and cruel. I almost reached for it but stopped myself. I turned off the light instead. The days that followed were eerily calm. Her lawyer called back twice, each time less confident. Apparently, Daniel's business had gone bankrupt, and the money she thought she'd rely on was gone. By the end of the week I got one final call. This time she wasn't angry. She was crying. "Mark," she said through tears, "I made a mistake. God, I thought you'd always be there. Can we talk? I closed my eyes, letting her words wash over me like waves that no longer reached shore. I already said everything I needed to, I whispered. When I hung up, I didn't feel triumph. Just peace. The house was still but not empty anymore. It was mine again. Later that night, I stood outside looking at the stars. The same sky we used to watch together. Wrapped in old blankets, dreaming about forever. Now, forever had a different shape. And for the first time in a long time, it was enough.